So, ladies and gentlemen, exciting part of proceedings. We try and have panel discussions when we can. So, first off, I'd like to welcome our panellists before I introduce them to you. I think you probably know most of them. But we have on the end Ben Edmonds. You've heard from him this morning. Today's guest speaker and principal engineer at New Product Innovation at Dyson Technology. We have next to Ben Ross, business development consultant for Keen Partners. So welcome to you, and of course SPA's preferred R&D tax credit consultancies. So if you're not sure whether you've made your claim yet or whether you can make a claim at all, please grab them before they disappear. So next in line, two away from myself, Mark Dempsey, Corrugated GTM Director for HP. You may have seen him on his brief 1-minute micro spotlight earlier. The only guy, when you ask to do 1 minute, comes up with a 2-minute presentation. So you've got an idea of what the man's like, so very good. And Neil, who you've heard twice so far, owner and MD of Noah Prism, and of course an SPA committee member. So welcome, gents. Thank you very much for agreeing to be on the panel. This is a panel discussion about innovation generally. I've got some questions here. Perhaps start with Neil, if that's okay. How would you define or describe innovation? And can you share some examples of innovation within our sector or within your own business, perhaps?
Sure, thanks, Tim. Yeah, so how I define, it's all about new solutions, and new solutions perhaps to old problems, or some of the things that I talked about earlier, or a new way of looking at an old problem. And I wanted to be able to illustrate from our industry a couple of examples here.
Can I help?
Yeah, thank you. My lovely assistant. Thank you very much. Thank you. So what I loved about this one, and this pod, this EcoClick pod, it's got the.
Oh, did you hear that?
Did you feel that? This is the new iPhone, isn't it? Because they've designed it to be that little. So I love that. So I think that's a great. Not only is it a fantastic innovation made out of fine flute, pioneered to satisfy consumer demand. That's been brilliant. Thank you. Thank you. The other one, I think this is just amazing. Way back in the mists of time, we wanted to be able to send stuff through the post. Amazon wanted us to be able to send stuff through the post. So Amazon encouraged this design. This design it's got glue, it's got a tape on it. It doesn't have a returnable tape on there, but it could have a returnable tape on there. And there are people who've got equipment that actually could have, and I was having this conversation with somebody on Friday, you could potentially have 6 there. So you could have this backwards and forwards as a box. And think about the PPWR issue. It's about reuse. If that box could become a reuse box, that you could at least send it 2 or 3 times, then corrugated would not be seen, as it seems to be being seen by the EU, as a negative. This could be a very positive addition. The other thing that I heard the other day is that the way that that's made, and there's a lot of machines now. I think a company called Tanabe have done incredibly well as a result of this, selling lots of their machines to make these. You could have void, instead of having void fill in there, special designs on this machine could stop you having to have void fill. What a fantastic invention. So,
very good. And the same question to you, Mark, if you can. How do you define innovation, and some examples, perhaps, from a different sector?
Yeah, I'm not a corrugated guy, so I don't have any boxes to show you or they're on the table. So I'm a technology person, and naturally at HP you think about innovation in terms of technology, and of course we try and lead our field in that area as well. But other areas of innovation is really how we support our customers in the field. So firstly, the question I always get asked is, okay, digital technology, we get the idea, but our sales guys don't know what to do with this. We don't know how to position this with our customers, the brands and retailers. And excuse me, I'm just ringing, so I've got to... My apologies.
Another order, perhaps.
Oh. So we're looking at developing programs, training academies, where we bring our potential customers and prospects into HP, and we talk to them about the benefits of digital printing, which, believe it or not, is not just variable data or versioning. It's about showing the customer supply chain efficiencies, teaching the sales guys how to position the benefits of sustainability within digital printing, so that we can stimulate, the move into a more sustainable future, I guess. Another innovation that we're doing outside of the technology itself is the model itself. How do we make it more affordable for the converters to get into this? We always talk about the CapEx versus OpEx model. So one of the things that we've learned from elsewhere within our business is something called device as a service. And we do this today in PCs and desktop printers. We go to banks and we partner with them on a monthly fee. So a bit like your mobile phone contract. So one of the things that we're going to be doing moving forwards is bundling the press, the supplies, the service, the cloud-based management of your business, and any software that will come with this into one monthly fee. So again, removing the impacts of that startup cost. So again, innovation isn't just in the hardware itself, and I can bore you to death with that in the bar later, but it's about all the things that come after the press itself.
Very good. And that same question to Ben. You'll be relieved to hear, Ross, you elected not to answer that question for very good reasons. So he looked a little bit scared then. Oh, God, I hope I don't have to answer that one. So, Ben.
So I guess these guys have covered quite a lot already. But I think for me, the innovation is a process. And I mentioned earlier, it's an approach to life. And so I think the best thing you can know about innovation is about how to do that. And it's about being able to observe the world around you, be able to spot problems and opportunities. It's being able to come up with as many ideas as you possibly can, and then working out of those ideas, which one should we progress? How many of those should we move forwards with? So it's much more about an ethos. It's how you live and breathe that on a daily basis. So innovation for me is literally every day. It's the kids' parties I do. It's how we're going to fit my workshop into my living room, or indeed my garage now, or any of those things.
Well, if you can keep hold of the mic,
Right.
Ben, because you've part answered this question in many ways. What is the driver for innovation within an organisation? Does it come from customers' needs ultimately, or does it come from the likes of yourself, creative people who start the process themselves?
Well, I mean, there's loads of directions, aren't there? I think a lot of the time, the general public don't actually know what they want. The whole faster horses analogy. So it takes innovative people to be able to chart uncharted territories. The best thing that we can do is understand what's the problem that you've got. Because people will tell you, they'll wax lyrical about the problems and how terrible their life is. So if we can understand what the problem is, then we can engineer a solution to it far better.
Very good. And if you can pass the microphone to your left, same question to you, Mark. What's the source of innovation? Is it internal within an organisation, or is it demands led by customers?
And again, to echo Ben, I think it comes from multiple directions. So we have user groups. So elsewhere within my labels and packaging division, we have other assets, labels, flexible packaging, folding cartons, and now corrugated. We run the biggest user group within the print community called D-Scoop, and we bring people together to share ideas, to share innovation. So we start with the customers. Then, of course, elsewhere within the organisation, we follow market trends, whether they're consumer trends, whether they're industry-related trends. And then, of course, we have some very, very clever people inside of the business as well, not just from within my packaging division, but elsewhere from the organisation, whether it's PCs or software or any of these other businesses as well. And the device as a service concept that I'm putting forward here is a great example of something that we're taking from elsewhere within the organisation.
Very good. Neil, do you have anything to add to that with regard to the source of innovation?
I think those two examples that I gave, Walkers, driven by consumer pressure, and that's huge. And the other one was the example of the iPad, and as I said, from personal experience, I had no idea why it was a clever idea, but it was, and Steve Jobs obviously knew it was too, so inspired by suppliers.
Very good. Next question.
Can I just say Steve Jobs was a HP employee?
Oh, right. Yeah. He set the bar high for you.
I'm following in his footsteps.
Okay. Very good. The next question is that how do we gauge it? We can be innovative. You've got a whole load of creative people. There's a cost associated with that. So how do we gauge the cost benefit of innovation? And do we advocate having a budget for innovation? So perhaps, Ross, you may have some experience of this.
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. I think To start with, certain industries it's more difficult than others. You know, if you're looking at something like software, if you've got a team of developers, it could take 6 months, it could take 6 years, and getting that cost, that ROI on that is very, very difficult. In manufacturing, if you're looking at processes, manufacturing sides, it's a lot clearer cut. You know, if you're looking at processing times, the volume, wastage, you can produce metrics on the back of that. And I think it's, you know, a lot easier to track and gauge that cost and benefit. On the second side of that, I think, yeah, definitely try and budget for it. There's an interesting piece by PwC in 2021 looking at FTSE 250 companies, and they were very much saying that sort of 3 to 4% was allocated to R&D budgets, innovation budgets, sorry, as a proportion of total revenue. So yeah.
Okay, and perhaps, Ben, you could answer the same question, and then the million-dollar question, what's the budget for Dyson's innovation?
It reads like a telephone number. Yeah, I can't talk about the numbers specifically, but you can imagine, I mean, everything I do, the entire building I work in is completely R&D, and it's a big building, and there's probably about 500 of us in there. The thing is, it's absolutely essential. How do you budget for it? A lot of what you will know about the place that I work is quite risky. We do stuff that other people don't do, primarily because we're not beholden to shareholders. We can do what James wants to do. How do you budget for it, and how do you get that return? Sometimes you just have to take a punt. The number of people that told James that doing the hairdryer was madness, and he sure showed them. So, yeah, who knew that you could sell a hairdryer for that much money? But you can. No, I think, yeah, how on earth do you budget for some of these things? I think sometimes you need to take a risk and a punt, but quite frankly, in this day and age, you have to have a portion of your business doing R&D. You just have to. Otherwise, you'll fall behind, and you will eventually grey and wither and die. Right? My dad worked at Kodak for 40 years, and everybody sort of knows the story of Kodak. Right? You know, you have to be able to be constantly on the edge and constantly pushing something within your business to improve. And that can just be literally processes. You know, you need somebody in your business constantly asking, why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? And why is that expensive? But you also have people there that need to be willing to change. I figured out a way to save us £1 million. We were too busy to take it on. I still think it hasn't actually been done, but yeah.
Very good. And let's not be dishonest, a lot of innovation fails. I mean, give me some examples of innovation that's failed. I can think of one cracking one.
Sinclair C5.
Yeah, Sinclair C5. I was actually on that advert.
Right,
If you look back, you'll see me sat on the Sinclair C5, filmed in Milton Keynes. It failed. It was not my future. So yeah, a lot of innovation does fail. So
Yeah.
there isn't a return on investment for a lot of innovation.
I was asked that question earlier about the car. I can't talk specifically about Dyson, but the site that we bought at Hallavington, that's the very place where I developed the product that I showed you earlier. So whilst one thing fails, you've still got to see the opportunity in that to be able to reimagine it and redevelop it and continue to use it. Like you do those things and they're not lost. You learned a hell of a lot, but we must do the lessons learned, and you must be able to see what's the opportunity in the lessons learned to be able to bring it on and move it again.
Yeah. Okay, in a time of squeezed margins, I can't talk about commercial matters, but there are squeezed margins out there. How do we fund innovation? If we're going to set a budget for it, how do we fund it? So this question is specifically to Ross. You know, how are we going to fund innovation, and how can you help?
Yeah, I mean, I've tried to look at it in sort of three key areas. I think one of them is sort of self-funded, whether that's, you know, reinvested profits, whether you allocate it to the previous question. But again, really, really important, and touch upon what Ben said. You know, if you're not innovating, you're standing still, and that means you're going backwards. So I think that's obviously one really, really important factor. The other one is government grants. I won't go into Brexit. I don't want to go into all of that, but there's still opportunity to get European grants. You know, that is still very much available, large sums of money. Also sort of UK government grants through Innovate UK. You know, that can be a really, really powerful way of doing it, especially if you're really wanting to move the needle in your industry. You know, new processes, new systems, upgrades, whatever that is. And then finally is R&D tax. I know I don't want to go on too much about it, but, you know, if you've never claimed before, being able to go back to previous financial periods, it's a nice bit of cash injection to innovate, to fuel future innovations, and then obviously in year, freeing up cash and reducing your corporation tax liabilities in year. So yeah, there's lots of opportunities there to.
Very good. I think Mark's got something to add, if that's all right.
Yeah, just you know, part of my responsibility is covering Europe as well as the UK, and I see greater support of European governments in funding innovation than I do here in the UK, and I think something has got to change here. You know, we can talk about our lack of manufacturing, but again, you know, what we do have is a great corrugated industry here in the UK. We just need to support it. And whether that can be done lobbying through the SPA or something like that, I think we really need to do that. In Italy, we see up to 50% funding through Industry 4.0.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent stuff. I've got a question which I've said I'll ask them all. So we'll probably go in the order that we're sat, if that's all right. So we'll start with Neil. Any advice for companies wishing to become more innovative?
The thing is everybody was saying, well, funds are short. There's a couple of areas that we went to. There was an organisation called Business Link, now defunct, but it's now called LEP. I think it's Local Enterprise Partnership. Go to them. They have two things. One is they have access to funds. The other thing is they have access to training. So particularly you're saying about creative thinking, the things that Ben's talked about. So the opportunities are in LEPs, that's one. And the other, R&D tax credits. A conversation I was having earlier was about, well, can you fund something that isn't a tangible product? Could it be something like software? And my own company, we had a software development and we managed to get some money back. The money was our own time, it was the R&D. So there is potentially money even in something that may not appear on the face of it, something that's fundable. So those are two, in my experience, that are good.
Yeah, please. Any advice for people wanting to be a bit more innovative?
Can I pass that on?
Yes, of course. You may well have answered it in a previous answer. So,
there's 5 sort of areas I highlight. I think document the journey. You know, from that initial spitball moment where you've come up with a concept, document that journey. What does it look like? Because I think that's a really good news story, which can be really powerful in an organisation. And then, you know, instill, as Ben said earlier, instill that innovative culture. That goes hand in hand. It could be something as simple as having an innovation discussion every time you have a monthly meeting. Everyone stands up something innovative that's happening in the industry and present it to the wider team, get a few thoughts provoked. Highlight failure. Again, if people are afraid of failure, the best work's not going to be happening. So, don't be afraid to fail. And then finally, don't be afraid to sort of bring expertise in-house. A lot of the time we see in projects, similar to what's just been said, but, software. It's really powerful to have sometimes software in-house to actually get some joined-up thinking between sort of the manufacturing and processing side and then sort of the technological side, because it's amazing what can happen when you sort of merge the two. So, yeah.
Very good. And Ben, any advice?
Yeah, I think from what I do, innovation doesn't need to be expensive. Okay, it largely depends what you're doing. Okay, but I innovate with 7-year-olds in a village hall with lollipop sticks and cardboard. And somebody asked me, why do I like cardboard? It's because it's an engineering material that is repeatedly put through your letterbox every single day, and you've just seen I can make magic happen with it. But also the other thing that I would recommend you do: reward innovation in your companies, monetize it. Or find ways to monetize it that costs you almost no money, but is encouraging for your staff. There's a company I used to work with, and the bonus for the employees there was based on swarf. And they would clean that place to an inch of its life to be able to make sure there's enough in there so they could have a Christmas party that year. And their place was spotless, right? I'm not suggesting that we just all have to sweep up and things, but show people a way, show people a path, monetize it. It doesn't have to cost you huge amounts of money. It could be a £50 Amazon voucher. But those things, people have got bills to pay, energy is really expensive. Show people that there's an opportunity there and a delight to do it, and reward people and put people up on stage and say, this is what they did. Isn't this great? Because ideas breed ideas, and people will see, well, actually, they did it, and that was pretty cool. Actually, I've got an idea. Maybe my idea is valid. I think you've got to give people a platform to be able to do that stuff.
Some really, really sage advice there. Great stuff. Are there any questions for our panellists? It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to ask them something. Ken? I heard you.
And this is made as a panel, but maybe for everyone here. How many or any of you have worked with the AMRC, the Advanced Manufacturing Research Centre in the UK?
Is it Birmingham?
It's in Sheffield. And there's another one opened alongside British Aerospace in Newcastle. But they will take on projects, and they will help fund projects to just develop the most fascinating things. They'll go have a look at your organisations that are coming, and again, this, you're not necessarily knowing what you're opening yourself up to. You're just asking this incredible place to, because it's just really off the top of their heads of what they're doing with robotics and any amount of other things. We're talking about software, AI, this, that they will help small companies and they'll help large.
And is that funded, part funded, or is that a paid service? Or?
Yeah, there is funding, but of course you have to talk to them, so you have to coach them to see if they're interested. But yeah.
We'll get a little bit more information for that, so we'll put it with the conference notes. So you have any other questions for our panellists? Please, you have them here once, so take full advantage of it. Anybody?
Ross.
Yes.
The government support is going the opposite direction for us, or R&D tax credits to them, to the recent cases?
Yeah, they've definitely been clamping down. There's no denying that. I think sort of industry averages about 10% in terms of inquiries. What it's doing though is eradicating a lot of fraudulent advisors, which were taking the mickey, which, you know, from our side we very much welcome. In terms of them tightening up the purse strings, not at all. It's just wanting to get better quality R&D and rewarding the companies that are truly innovating. So yeah, I mean, a lot of people are feeling the pinch a little bit on it at the minute and delayed processing times. But, you know, it's all something that we do welcome, although it's a bit of a pain in the arse at the minute. But, yeah, it's, positive steps forward.
Can I ask Neil a question?
Yeah, go on,
So,
go for it.
so just going to the box, is it the aerial box? Is that what it is?
Our iPhone experience.
Yeah. So who drove that innovation? Was that the converter? Was it the brand? Who drives that?
What I was showing before, then consumer, and the consumer was saying, the plastic item that you have at the moment we don't like, we want this. And then P&G, being an innovative company, said, right, okay, how do we answer that? I mean, it's really clever. You've seen inside one of these. I mean, the pods are great. They clean up my shirt like this, but what's it? It's just amazing.
Beware a man that gets excited about cardboard.
Come on, that's Ben. Have you seen inside these?
I know, I freaking love it. I think that's genius. Yeah.
It's very, very clever.
We have time for one more question.
I'm sorry,
Go
I'm
on,
just
another
interested.
comment. Go on.
Yeah, I'm just interested. How would an independent converter, maybe somebody that's out here, approach a brand like this with a novel idea like this? I mean, how do you break down those barriers? I mean, I can imagine if you're a DS Smith or a Smurfit Kappa, it'd be relatively easy for you to do. But if you're a relatively small converter, you know, is that easy to do?
It's interesting what Ken was saying, because it just clicked something for me that UE, University of the West of England, has a centre in it, and they universities often have these thought centres, and actually that's and those people that know, I have a connection with a wildlife business, and and we're actually inventing, creating new products, wildlife products, with the help and support of UE. So forgive me for not mentioning that before, but any university is probably a good place to start, and that's where a lot of the big companies go, I think.
Very good. Pass it along.
Yeah, just on the university thing, and even schools as well. A lot of these people, they don't have decent examples of real-world problems. Everything is completely theoretical. So take your problem immediately to a university, and now you've immediately got 50 people working on your project for no money. And then you bring them in on it. You say that there's a reward here. There's a financial reward for you to do this, and then they're going to pull their socks out and do it. They've got to pay for that beer somehow. But also, I'm going to take the opportunity just to say that, you know, I do go into businesses and I do projects with businesses, not least on making stuff, but on mindset. And that's the most important thing that I want you to take away from my stuff today, is about mindset. That's how important it is. And getting your people thinking in the right way will mean that you're ready for the future. And I've had the benefit of being able to work with the university we have at Dyson. If you don't know, we've got a university. And multiple universities across the world. And we're doing the same thing with the MOD later this year, as I am with head teachers in September. And it's about not only having some chat, because I do enjoy the chat, but it's about doing physical workshops and making physical things and getting people to think in creative ways. So chat to me.
Well, what a way to finish. You've had just about all our combined knowledge and help. Oh, there's one more question here.
In answer to your question, how would an independent do a job like that? I once went to visit a country, corrugator plant in the Black Country. Yeah. He was an independent. He had 2 factories. One was a sheep plant, one was a corrugator, and the corrugator was a dirty, filthy place. I mean, the roof had got holes in it, but you need a telescope to see the roof. But he had products that he had worked on for the likes of Procter & Gamble, which is that one, and Purcell, other leading manufacturers, and they were samples in his sheet plant, which was the clean, tidy place that had been produced. The corrugator had done their boxes, and the sheet plant had converted it. So they do go to the big boys and say, we can produce this for you at probably a fraction of the cost that you go to the Smiths and the Cappers. So it does happen,
So
rightly or wrongly.
yeah. It's probably another session, isn't it? Talk about patenting your design, because in our industry, change one slight fold or crease or slight shape and you think you've got around the patent, but perhaps you can share with us how easy or otherwise it is to patent a design of a box.
Yeah, I mean, a patent, if you're unaware, it's a novel step, and it's something that hasn't happened before in human history, which is quite exciting. But one, they're difficult to get within reason. Certainly if your industry has been going for a really long time, which you guys have, not impossible, and not crazy money as well if you want to in the UK. So we came up, there's a product that I'm launching in October this year with my own stuff, which is furniture related, and my patents are going through at the moment. And all in, I think, is about 6,000 quid for a UK patent, and it's only a little bit more money because we paid for the fast track service to make it happen faster. But what I would say about patents, and you should definitely get them, but if you think about the likes of Dyson, everything we do is patented, and yet Walmart are selling a hair wrap for $50. That's the sales price, and it is 99% identical to what we made. So you can protect your stuff. It's not going to stop people copying you. It's just going to give you some level of protection. But still, you know, it depends who you're working with and who you're up against, but you really do need to protect your ideas, and don't go telling anybody about it until you've done so.
Yeah, I think the real strength of a patent in this area is it dissuades other people from copying it. So it doesn't stop them entirely, but it will dissuade them.
No, you need to get the broadest possible patent you can get as well. But, yeah.
Very good. Well, can we thank our panellists very much? And can I ask you to take your seats with you and just put them around the back of the screen? That would be great. Thank you.